All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. We're talking to the chairs of Indiana's major political parties as we enter the final days of the election. News 8's government reporter Garrett Berquist sat down with both of them in recent days.
Joining us now is Indiana State Republican Party Chair Kyle Hupfer. Kyle, thank you for talking to us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Democrats have been hitting your party for several months over abortion. Did your party go too far and potentially jeopardize your chances in some of the closer races, particularly in some of these suburban swing districts?
I don't think so. I think, the Republicans did what they had told the voters in the state they would do if given the opportunity on that topic. And certainly there was some attention around that at the time. But as we get closer and closer to Election Day, as we're looking at polling, voters are going back to what they always go back to, pocketbook issues, jobs, the economy, inflation. And they see the issues that Democrats are having nationally with those topics. And I think you're setting up for a real wave election for Republicans.
Your party's Secretary of State nominee, Diego Morales, has faced questions over his view of the 2020 election and then now also allegations of sexual misconduct by two separate women. How concerned are you that those controversies might either sink his campaign or force a closer race than you'd like?
Well, we'll see what the voters do. I mean, what we've seen so far is it hasn't had a big impact in the race. But again, we'll see on Election Day. But I fully expect that our statewide elected officials will win.
When were you aware that Diego Morales was first facing these allegations? Did these women come forward to you?
I did. I had a woman come to me about 2 months after the convention.
And what did she say to you?
Well, she's put her statements out, and he's put his statement out, and it's really up to the voters to decide on that topic at this point.
Why did you continue to give Diego Morales your undivided support even after these allegations surfaced?
He's our Republican nominee.
How confident are you that Jennifer Ruth Green can unseat Congressman Frank Mrvan?
Listen, she's run a tremendous race. She's a great candidate. She's been well funded. The demographics in that district have shifted over the last several cycles, which has opened up an opportunity for a candidate like Jennifer Ruth Green. She's got a message that's resonating. She's running against a candidate who's not very strong. He's only won one time. And so, it sets up for, in a year that I think we're going to see with really high Republican turnout, strong support for Republican issues nationally. It sure sets up the possibility for something to happen that, hasn't happened since the 30s.
Tell me about the role that this election plays for your party as a test run for 2024, particularly with regard to the governor's race, the Senate race in 24, and the presidency.
I don't know how much correlation it'll have to that. I mean, since I've been chairman, we've kind of run the same program, 18, 20, now 22. We've got that down. We've got a team approach. All the candidates come together. And so our ground game is strong. Our GOTV efforts are strong. Each election cycle is different.
Joining us now is Indiana Democratic Party Chair Mike Schmoll. Mike, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
The polls consistently show the economy and inflation coming in at the top of voters' minds. Energy and crime also rank ahead of abortion. That's from a Pew poll that came out in the middle of October. Given that, why focus so much energy on abortion? Are you depending too heavily on that issue?
I don't think so, and I think it's about striking a balance. I think that we have talked about our contract with Women Tour last week and this week. I think it really crystallizes the danger of having a supermajority in our state here in Indiana. We're bottom of the barrel of so many rankings, and to become the first state in the country in special session post-Dobbs to pass a near total abortion ban, I think is unfortunate. And I think it crystallizes the problems that we have with a Republican supermajority. The way we solve that is we elect more Democrats to balance out the State House.
How have the allegations against Diego Morales changed your strategy when it comes to winning the Secretary of State's race?
Well, I think it's a race that we're focusing on very heavily because it's competitive. I think it's competitive for a number of reasons. I think that Destiny is a great candidate, and she's been traveling around the state making inroads, meeting Hoosiers, talking about her candidacy. She has a lot of appeal. She grew up on a farm in Martinsville, Republican parents. She signed up for the Army at age 19, went through law school. She served as an attorney. She's a mom, and she's younger. She, I think, appeals to a broad swath of Hoosiers. On the other side of the equation is Diego, and he just has so much baggage. He's so dangerous.
How worried are you about Congressman Frank Mervan losing his seat in Northwest Indiana?
There's a lot of money in this race, there's no question, but I do think that Frank is keeping his head down. He's working hard. He's focusing on his constituents in Northwest Indiana, and that he'll be reelected in November.
How crucial is that seat to maintaining control of Congress?
I think it's very crucial. Obviously, the balance in Congress is close. And it's a seat that's been held by Democrats for, I think, over 90 years. And so it's essential that we keep it in our column. So we have Frank Mervan in Northwest Indiana and Andre Carson here in Indianapolis.
When it comes to messaging, when it comes to the issues that the Democratic Party runs on, how much is 2024 going to be influenced by what happens on November 8th?
I think that remains to be seen. My hope is that after November 8th, that we've made some gains at the State House level. We've protected what we have, and we're starting to slowly make gains in our state. So there's more Democratic office holders. And I think what'll be interesting will be, what are some of the agenda items for the session that's going to come up in the new year? What is the administration going to focus on? What's the General Assembly going to focus on? I think that those are questions that remain to be seen. But what I think
All right, coming up, we talk to a national political observer about the role Indiana will play in determining the control of Congress. All right, welcome back. There's a lot to watch Tuesday night in Indiana and nationally. Our Garrett Bergquist talked to a leading political observer about how Indiana fits into the big picture.
From a national perspective, the two races to watch here in Indiana are the Secretary of State's race and Congressman Frank Mervan's district. A national pollster tells me the vote margins in those two races will tell us a lot about where we're headed. Let's start with that Secretary of State race. Diego Morales is one of several Republican candidates for that office nationwide who have raised doubts about the legitimacy of the 2020 election. He distanced himself from those comments in a recent interview with News 8. Sabato's crystal ball at the University of Virginia moved the race to toss-up on Friday. Associate editor J. Miles Coleman says if you want to see how well 2020 election rhetoric plays when it comes to election offices, watch Hamilton County.
Hamilton County, you have a very large college-educated Republican population. These would be voters who would be just fine with a Todd Young or a Mitt Romney type of Republican, not so much a Trumpier type of Republican. I'm not sure it's going to be enough to give the race to the Democrat just because Indiana is such a Republican state. But I can see a decent amount of people splitting their ticket.
Up in Northwest Indiana, Democratic Congressman Frank Mervan has been locked in a toss-up race with Jennifer Ruth Green all year. Republicans need a net gain of just 5 seats to retake the House.
I would say on election night, if it looks like Mervan is going to hold on, okay, well, there's maybe a chance that things might not go too badly for Democrats. If he only barely holds on, well, I think Republicans have a good chance of flipping the House. If it's a decisive win in favor of Green, I think the Republicans could have a pretty decent majority.
Democrats have centered their campaigns on Republicans' role in the reversal of Roe versus Wade. Coleman says that might work with some voters, but economic issues usually top everything, especially in a midterm. Democrats also recently started playing to concerns over threats to democracy. Here's President Joe Biden last week.
To meet this moment of national and generational importance, we must vote knowing what's at stake and not just the policy of the moment, but institutions that have held us together as we sought a more perfect union are also at stake.
We hear a lot about that, but it's not clear how it sort of plays on both sides. If you're a Democrat and you care about threats to democracy, you may think of something like January 6th or Trump. Whereas if you're a Republican, you may interpret that as voter fraud.
Whatever happens on Tuesday night, Coleman says don't treat it like a predictor for 2024.
Obama saw this same thing about 10 years ago. In his 2010 midterms, he did very poorly in states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, sort of in the neighborhood of Indiana, only to come back and carry them easily two years later. What I will say, though, is, I think inflation, we may still be dealing with that as an issue in 2 more years.
If you haven't voted yet, you have until noon Monday if you'd like to vote early. On Election Day itself, the polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. local time. Garrett Bergquist, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
All right, coming up, Indiana's best political team breaks down their predictions for election night. And welcome back to All Indiana Politics. Welcome back to members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Laura Beck and Republican Mario Mastrolamani. Good to see you both. Lots to get to today. We'll begin with the Secretary of State's race. Sabato's crystal ball, as you heard on Friday, moved it up to toss-up. That came a day after reports emerged that Diego Morales might have voted unlawfully, I should say, in Hendricks County in 2018. Mario, could these controversies cost Morales the election?
I don't think so. First, the issue that was brought up, I think it was yesterday, regarding the 2018 election. This was litigated in the past. This is something that even his opponents had brought up at the time, and nothing was found to be of merit. One of the things that I would say or argue is, I've been looking at voter history as the Hamilton County Republican chairman. I get statewide voter data for early voting. It's showing right now that the surrounding counties, the donut counties, and in the rural areas, we are voting at historic levels for early voting. Traditionally, Democrats come out in early voting, Republicans show day of, but that's not appearing to be the case in this instance. Marion County is having very low turnout. That's going to bode well for Diego Morales and the statewide ticket as Republicans.
So, Laura, Destiny Wells, as you know, has staked out positions on a host of issues, including redistricting. Does that limit her ability, in your opinion, to capitalize on the Morales controversies?
Oh, I think Destiny Wells is heading into this election really strong. And frankly, I think she's run a great campaign. And she's an excellent candidate for all the reasons that Mike Schmull, Chairman Schmull, outlined a little bit earlier. What Diego Morales has done is Diego Morales has made the case to us of why he's unfit to be Secretary of State. We have watched week after week, month after month, stories and issues come out about him, from alleged voter fraud to credible sexual assault allegations. He's been fired from the office that he's seeking, purchased a car with campaign money. I mean, the list goes on and on. So anyone who is closely watching these races, which I believe they are, especially in light of the climate we're in, where election denial is so frightening and such a threat to our democracy, I think will be casting a vote for Destiny Wells.
Mario, to Laura's point, there seems to be a lot there.
You know, I think that the media is trying to drag up things that were litigated in the past. People want this to be a close race. It's not going to be. On this show, I have talked for the last 6 months that Diego Morales is going to win by at least 5 to 7 points. And, we'll see if I'm held to be true or not.
Yeah.
But the problem, I think, is, Diego being non-traditional candidate for the Republicans. He's going to be the first Hispanic ever elected into statewide office as a Hispanic, as a Republican. I think makes him an easy target. English is not his first language. They quote unquote say that he's not qualified. The Democrats do. What are the exact qualifications you need to run for Secretary of State? Looking back, there are a number of candidates on both parties that have run for Secretary of State, but that dog whistle kind of like argument hasn't been made in the past. This argument of that, he's not might have committed election fraud or voter fraud was brought up even in the primary when he ran for Congress, and that was found to be not accurate. So I think that he might be an easier target because, Democrats don't want to see us having the first Hispanic ever elected to statewide office, which we're going to make history on November 8th. And so I think that sometimes he's an easier target than the rest of our statewide ticket. And so
I'll let
Phil,
you,
I
Laura,
have
I'll
to
let you
respond to that.
respond, and then I want to move on to other topics. Go ahead.
I have to respond to that. That's absolutely patently false. I mean, that is absolutely patently false, and I think it's disingenuous to suggest that that's what this is about. The Republican establishment didn't want him to run for a host of reasons, because, again, he has allegedly committed election fraud. He's an election denier. He believes that Donald Trump won the election in 2020, which is not true. And he also is facing a number of credible sexual assault allegations, which were brought to leaders of the Republican Party, and they did nothing about it and ignored it. And to suggest that we are making this about him in another way is it's disingenuous and it's false.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens on Tuesday night. Moving on to the Frank Mrvan situation here, the race in Northwest Indiana. This has been a toss-up all year long. This one is for both of you now. To what extent is this a barometer for House races nationwide, and how crucial is this seat to control the House? Laura, we'll go with you on this one.
Well, I think Frank Mrvan has been a great congressman. He knows that district well. He's from that district, longtime political family. They know how to run campaigns. They know how to win elections. So I'm probably less concerned about it. I do think it's important to say, though, that this is a new district and new maps. And so it's a little friendlier to Republicans than it may have been in the past. So we need to also be mindful of the impact that redistricting does have. But at the end of the day, I think he's a strong candidate, and I think he'll pull it out.
Mario, how are you reading this race?
The fact that we're talking about this race is significant. Republicans haven't held this seat in 92 years. I mean, think about that. 92 years, Republicans have not held a seat. So the amount of money, the attention that's going in is amazing. We have a phenomenal candidate, another minority military veteran candidate that is running. It's extremely close. Looking at the 2020 election, Biden won that district by 9 points. Now, it has been redistricted a little bit. It's made it a little bit more Republican, but not to cover 9 points. If we as Republicans win that seat, it is going to be an amazing night for us on November 8th throughout the country, because what it's going to show is that the voters, not just Hoosier voters, but voters in the United States, are tired of the inflation issues, the economy, crime. Those are the issues that they're focused on. And that will show and be a statement that they want Republicans back in to be a stopgap to Joe Biden's terrible policies.
I want to move the conversation to national politics now, guys. Aides close to former President Donald Trump say that Trump might announce a 2024 run on November 14th. Mario, would this clear the bench specifically as it pertains to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former Vice President Mike Pence?
Not at all. I have friends that are closely connected to Ron DeSantis' campaign, also to the vice president, and also Mike Pompeo's campaign. And they are not concerned at all if Donald Trump runs. They are all planning on running for president in 2024. And I think it's going to be an exciting time to see who Republicans will pick to be their nominee for president in 2024.
Laura, I'll let you get the last word here today.
Well, I think it'll be really interesting, especially as we look at the threats that we are facing to democracy. And we've talked a little bit about this earlier. And I think that I think Mario brings up a great point. If there is a crowded Republican field for president, I think that's probably healthy and probably good, especially because 9 in 10 Americans are concerned about the rhetoric that's out there. So Donald Trump tends to have a burn it all down, and I'm going to destroy everything to lift myself up mentality. And frankly, it'll be really interesting to see how the Republican Party handles that, especially if there is a healthy Republican primary.
Countdown is on to Tuesday, guys. Always good to see you. We'll see what
you.
happens. We'll talk. All right. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
Thanks.
Take All Indiana Politics on the go with you. Download our podcast now. Part of the All Indiana Podcast Network and allindianapodcastnetwork.com.
All right, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network at wishtv.com. We'll see you Tuesday night for Election Day. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.